Recently, US President Donald Trump caused quite a stir by commenting, in a tone of mockery, that no one had ever heard of this Lesotho. And to be fair, he wasn't entirely wrong. But what about you? Have you ever heard the name before? If not, that's fine. Today is the day when that changes, and in a way you won't forget. Lesotho is one of those countries that seem to have been invented. A kingdom hidden in the middle of Africa, completely surrounded by South Africa, landlocked, and with a geography so unique that it seems like a lie. In this part of Africa, you won't find savannas, scorching heat, or endless desert. Here the scenery is different. Icy mountain ranges, steep roads, snow in winter, and even a ski resort more than 3,000 meters high. It is in this unlikely setting that the Basotho people live. They have a rich culture, a history of resistance, and traditions that mix monarchy and slightly macabre rituals. Today, Bello Mundo takes you to the Kingdom in the Sky, a little-known place, and one that you will get to know from now on. Number 1. Location and general data. An entire country nestled inside another, with no coastline, no access to the sea, and its entire territory above 1,000 meters. Does that sound rare? Because it is. Lesotho is the only country in the world with these three characteristics at the same time, and for this reason it has earned a very poetic nickname, the Kingdom in the Sky. With just over 30,000 square kilometers and around 2 million inhabitants, Lesotho is small in size but huge in peculiarities. Its capital, Maseru, is right on the border with South Africa, its only neighbor, since the country is completely surrounded by it. The most striking feature of the country are the mountains. The Maloti and Drakensberg mountain ranges dominate the landscape, with peaks that exceed 3,000 meters. The geography forms deep valleys, steep slopes, and roads that seem to have come out of a movie, all full of curves, gradients, and surprises. Being at such high altitudes, Lesotho registers low temperatures that escape the African stereotype of scorching heat. In winter, snow is not uncommon, especially above 2,000 meters. This attracts the curious and the adventurous, who are surprised to see white peaks just a few hours from Johannesburg or Durban. In the summer, it rains more, the greenery reappears, and the temperature is milder. This mountainous terrain is also crucial for the region's water supply. The country serves as a huge water tower for South Africa, with several rivers, including tributaries of the Orange River, flowing from its high slopes. From this, you can see that, although tiny, Lesotho is of strategic value to its powerful neighbor. Number 2. The monarchy. While many African countries opted to become republics after independence, Lesotho followed a different path. To this day, the country maintains a constitutional monarchy, and it's not just a ceremonial detail. The figure of the king still carries enormous symbolic weight among the Basotho, the local people. The throne is currently occupied by Letsie III, who took over in 1996 after the death of his father, Moshoeshoe II. He lives in the royal palace, attends official events, receives foreign leaders, and is seen as a guardian of traditions. But it is the democratically elected prime minister who runs the government on a day-to-day basis, together with parliament. To outsiders, all this might seem like something from another time, a king in the 21st century, but for the population, the monarch represents something greater than politics. He is the continuity of an ancestral lineage, the link to the past and to the values of the kingdom's founder, Moshoeshoe I. It is this bond with history that sustains the monarchy to this day, far beyond protocols and ceremonies. Number 3. A little history. And while we're on the subject of Moshoeshoe Primero, it's worth understanding who this character was, who is revered as a national hero to this day. In the 19th century, while much of Africa was immersed in tribal disputes and conflicts against European invaders, Moshoeshoe did things differently. He used strategy, diplomacy, and uncommonly good political sense to unify the Sotho clans that inhabited the mountainous region where Lesotho is today. He built a kingdom strong enough to withstand attacks from neighboring tribes, such as the Zulu, and also to face pressure from Boer settlers from the south. When the going got tough, he sought British support. And that's how, in 1868, the territory became a protectorate known as Basotho land. The relationship with the British was, shall we say, pragmatic. Moshoeshoe guaranteed protection, but without completely relinquishing local control. This partnership lasted almost a century, until 1966, when Lesotho finally gained its independence and adopted the name it still uses today. The road after that was not easy. There were political crises, coups, interference from South Africa, but through it all, the figure of the king stood firm as a symbol of unity. Moshoeshoe. The first's legacy still echoes in the country's speeches, rituals, and even political decisions. It's as if he still sews the threads that hold Lesotho together. Number 4. Population and language. As we said at the start, this small country is home to just over 2 million inhabitants, which sounds like a high number. But everything changes when you consider the terrain. Mountains on all sides, deep valleys, bitter cold in winter, and very difficult access. The result? A large part of the population lives in isolation, in villages where life happens to the rhythm of the land and traditions. Almost everyone in Lesotho belongs to the Basotho people, and the predominant language is Sesotho, a Bantu language spoken both there and in neighboring regions of South Africa. English is also official, especially in schools, government papers, and in business. But in everyday conversations, especially in the countryside, Sesotho sets the tone. And speaking of the countryside, that's where most of them still live. In cities like Maseru, the lifestyle is already starting to change, with commerce, traffic, and modern neighborhoods on the rise. But in the countryside, the scene is different. Simple houses made of stone or adobe, covered in straw or metal sheets, where the routine revolves around farming, livestock, and spirituality, which can range from Mass on Sunday to ancestral rituals on more symbolic days. It's a place where modernity arrives slowly, respecting the footsteps of those who prefer to keep their feet firmly planted in the culture inherited from their ancestors. And perhaps that's why Lesotho has a special charm. It's a country that lives high up but with deep roots. Number 5. Religion and traditional beliefs. If there's one thing that defines Lesotho well, it's the mix. And in faith, this is also very evident. The majority of the population identifies as Christian, something that came from colonial times, with French and British missionaries spreading the Bible through the mountains. Today, Catholic and Protestant churches and even independent African movements are part of everyday life for most Basotho. But spirituality there goes far beyond the church pews. In several more isolated regions, where time seems to pass more slowly, syncretism is still strong. It's that typical scenario where someone can go to Mass on Sunday and on Monday take part in an ancestral protection ritual, offering blessings to the spirits of their ancestors. In rural communities especially, this balance between Christian faith and ancient practices remains firm. There are still initiation ceremonies, traditions such as the lobolo, that symbolic payment made by the groom's family, and even healers who work with herbs, prayers, and wisdom passed down from generation to generation. Some of these practices have been criticized by more recent evangelical churches, which see certain rituals as pagan. But in many villages, these traditions remain an essential part of social life. Respect for elders is another pillar that has never disappeared. It's common to see families gathered around the fire, while the elders tell stories about the origin of the clan, the battles of the past, and, of course, about Moshashu Primero, the founding king, seen to this day as the great father of the nation. His figure is almost sacred and appears in everything, in songs, legends, and even in the rituals of giving thanks for the land. Number 6. Customs, rights, and the famous Basotho blanket. One element that stands out in Lesotho is the Basotho blanket. In many regions, both men and women wear thick blankets with a combination of colorful and geometric prints. It's practical for protecting against the cold in the mountains, but it has a deeper meaning. The patterns and colors can represent a family's history, historical events, or even important dates in the national calendar. It's common to give someone a blanket when they reach a certain stage of life or on special dates, such as weddings. Have you heard of the mokorotlo hat? It's also a symbol of Lesotho. It's a conical braided hat with a point at the top that resembles a little lighthouse, and it's even on the country's flag. And while we're on the subject of traditions, there's one that's a real eye-catcher and also generates controversy: the Lebolo, which are initiation rites. It's a kind of school of life for teenagers. When boys and girls reach a certain age, they are taken to isolated places and spend weeks, sometimes months, learning the values of the community: respect, discipline, spirituality, and even mountain survival techniques. The boys, in particular, experience rituals involving dances, songs, and teachings about masculinity, many of which are also marked by practices such as circumcision. This type of ritual is still seen as essential by many families, who believe that only after the Lebolo is the young man ready to be treated as an adult. But there is also criticism. Human rights groups question the lack of medical supervision, the secrecy surrounding the procedures, and the absence of clear consent in some cases. Number 7. Places. Now that you've understood where Lesotho is, how the government works, the history of the Basotho people, and what drives the local culture, what about tourism? Yes, as isolated as it may seem, this country hidden in the mountains has attractions that will take any visitor by surprise, starting with something you wouldn't expect to hear in the middle of Africa: snow skiing. And it's no joke. There's a resort called Afriski at an altitude of over 3,000 meters with slopes of different levels, charming accommodation, instructors, and even European-style après-ski parties. The snow season runs from June to August, when the weather really freezes and you can see white mountains in the heart of the African continent. It is one of the only places in Africa where this is possible. Another highlight that attracts visitors is the impressive Malatsunyan Falls, a waterfall almost 200 meters high near the town of Semonkong. The fall is cinematic and can be admired from various angles. If you're feeling brave, you can try the highest abseil in Africa, hike the surrounding trails, or simply sit back and let the sound of the water and the scenery do the work. If your thing is nature with a cultural twist, you need to try pony trekking. Basotho ponies aren't exactly as short as their name suggests. They're strong, agile horses, perfectly adapted to the country's rugged terrain. For centuries, they were the main means of transportation between mountain villages. Today, they take you along spectacular routes, passing rivers, valleys, and slopes that would be impossible to explore on foot. All this with a local guide often dressed in a traditional blanket and ready to tell you stories along the way. And for those who like places that breathe history, it's well worth a visit to Thaba Bosyu, a rocky plateau that was the refuge of King Moshushu during wartime. The name means night mountain, and legend has it that the defenders worked at dawn so as not to attract the attention of their enemies. Today, the site has ruins, royal tombs, and a breathtaking view. It's one of those spots that mix landscape, memory, and an energy that's hard to explain. Number 8. Gastronomy and eating habits. If you're one of those who love to experience a country through its stomach, then prepare your appetite. Lesotho's cuisine may be simple, but it has flavor, tradition, and a direct link to the daily life of rural communities. As the climate is cold and the terrain mountainous, crops there face many challenges. For this reason, the country's food base revolves around hardy ingredients such as corn, sorghum, beans, and local vegetables. And the king of the table, a dish called papa. It resembles a firm polenta made with corn flour cooked into a dense paste. It may seem basic, but it comes alive with vegetable sauces, lamb, goat meat, or beans. It's the kind of dish that sustains the farm worker and accompanies almost every meal. Another curious and traditional item is motoho, a porridge made with fermented sorghum. It is served cold with a slightly sour and bittersweet taste and usually appears at breakfast. Many people turn up their noses at the first spoonful, but then they get used to it, and it's even addictive. What's more, it's nutritious and helps you cope with cold days at high altitudes. Speaking of protein, the Basotho take advantage of what the land has to offer. Lamb and goat meat are common, both because of the tradition of grazing and because they are easy to raise in the rugged terrain. Cattle also exist, but on a smaller scale. Fish, on the other hand, is not the country's strong suit. It only appears in regions close to large dams, where there is artificial farming or some controlled fishing. And as every culture needs a local drink, Lesotho has its own, Maluti beer. Produced within the country itself, it takes its name from the mountains that dominate the territory and is a true symbol of national pride. You can bet that at any gathering, celebration, or simple chat among friends, there will be a cold maluti on the menu. Number 9. Social problems and future challenges. To end this tour of Lesotho, we need to take off the tinted lens for a moment, because despite the rich culture, breathtaking landscapes, and Basotho pride, the country faces heavy challenges, some of them among the most serious in the world. One of the most critical problems is the high rate of HIV/AIDS. Unfortunately, the nation is among the countries with the highest incidence of the disease, and this has a direct impact on life expectancy, productivity, and even family structure. In many communities, children are raised by grandparents or distant relatives because their parents died early, a harsh but common reality there. Another alarming problem is mental health. The country has one of the highest suicide rates in the world. In rural areas, talking about depression or anxiety is still taboo. There's a lack of professionals, a lack of resources. What's left is silent suffering. In addition, many young people leave the country in search of opportunities in South Africa, which weakens the local economy. Politically, Lesotho has already faced instability, coup attempts, and crises that have even required international intervention. The question remains, how can the Basotho culture be preserved and the country modernized at the same time? Some answers are emerging through community initiatives, sustainable tourism, and small local businesses. It's not easy, but the people of Lesotho have shown that they know how to resist, and that in itself is a good start. So, did you enjoy getting to know this unknown country? If you liked this content, leave a like, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to Bello Mundo to stay up to date with everything about cultures, destinations, and curiosities from a world full of surprises. Thank you very much for following along, and we'll see you on our next adventure.